So back when I was about 13, I believe, I had a Nintendo 64 for a little while, and I was quite happy with it. There was juggernauts on there like Super Mario 64, GoldenEye, Turok, Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. But I had already beaten those games, and I became increasingly more disappointed with each new game that I went and bought. Uh, One day I'm in Toys R Us and I'm looking for games to buy, and I see a little display kiosk. Back in the day, they would have where you could try out consoles, and they would have like demos on there, demo discs on there, and there was a game on there called Tomb Raider 2. It had yet to be released, but I sat there and I played it for quite some time, and I was just totally, totally captivated by how much better the graphical quality and just the difference in the gaming experience I was getting from my Nintendo 64. So that set me on a path to I needed this console. I needed the PlayStation 1. It had already been out a couple years, but it didn't really gain traction right away in the US. But anyway, what I did was I decided, what if I were to exchange my N64 to get a PlayStation instead? And this is a true story. I took it back I didn't have the receipt. I took it back, and to exchange it, and the clerk told me, "This is your 90th day you've had this Nintendo 64. If you would have waited one day longer, you wouldn't be able to exchange it." Problem was, they didn't have any PS1s in stock. So after calling for about a week to see if they got their new shipment in, I finally procured my PlayStation 1 with my copy of Tomb Raider 1. And that's kind of where my PlayStation 4A began. That was the first game I played on PlayStation, and shortly after I started experiencing and finding other games like Crash Bandicoot, for example, Final Fantasy VII, Metal Gear Solid is probably the biggest and most impactful game in the PlayStation 1 era for me. I knew about that game coming well before the PlayStation was even out. I played the original Metal Gears on NES when I was way younger, at like 7 or 8. And I could not believe that was real, that was a real game coming out. And it came out a couple of months after I got my PlayStation 1, and still to this day remains one of the most influential gaming experience I've ever had in my entire life. And there's many others, too many to name. But then, on October 26, 2000, this decided to happen.
Sony PlayStation 2 will be the biggest thing to come along since TV was invented. The buzz on this product is that strong.
PlayStation 2.
PlayStation 2. Newest, fastest video game system ever.
So, if I might have stated before, I didn't really have a lot of money growing up as a kid. So I wasn't able to get a PlayStation 2 at launch. It took the world by storm, like literally. I remember, people buying them just because it was cheaper than a DVD player. You know what I'm saying? So it took me a little while to get one. I mowed lawns. I did cut trees. I did everything I could to scrape up money to get myself a PS2. Because Grand Theft Auto 3 and Metal Gear Solid 2 were right around the corner, and I just could not fathom missing out on those games on release date. So it took me, about 6 months or so after it launched to be able to get one. The first game I got was Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3, and I had initially what made me force myself to save up money to get a PS2 was I bought Tony Hawk 3 on PS1, and it was not as advertised. All the all the previews and stuff in the magazines were the PS2 version, and it really made me upset. So I got myself a PS2 with Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3. A couple days later, Grand Theft Auto 3 came out. I picked that up, and I still remember sitting, and I lived with my grandparents at the time, and I still remember keeping the volume as low as possible so that they didn't hear like the cussing and stuff. I didn't even want them to know I had that game because they're very religious, and they probably just wouldn't approve. Plus, I was underage, so. But I mean, the PS2 was a juggernaut. It was, to this day, I believe it's still the highest selling console of all time. Everyone had one. Towards the end of the life cycle, pretty much every household had one. And unfortunately, for me, so I thought, Naughty Dog decided to grow up and released a trailer for a game called Uncharted Drake's Fortune. And during this time, I kind of jumped ship. Reason being is because the Xbox 360 was coming out a whole year earlier than the PlayStation 3, and I just really wanted the next-gen experience. So I got the 360 on launch day. There was no way in heck I was going to be able to afford a PlayStation 3, at least until price drops or whatever. However, right before Uncharted 1 came out, I was given the opportunity. I'm an artist, so I went into my local mom and pop game store, and they wanted like a mural painted of different video game characters in their shop. And they asked me how much I would charge, and I said, I wouldn't charge you anything. Just let's do an exchange for a PlayStation 3. And it was $600 still at the time, and that's what I did. I painted their shop. It took me a couple of days. I got the console, and then about 3 days later, Uncharted 1 came out, and that pretty much secured me being a lifetime PlayStation fan. I'm not strictly PlayStation. I play everything. I got for Xbox. I built a PC earlier this year. I have a Switch. But PlayStation is my main console, and I have the most love for it because it just delivered on in my opinion, the best exclusive games, and there's a ton of them. Some are lost to time, like The Getaway and Siphon Filter and things of that nature, but they just continue to come out with excellent story-driven single-player experiences that were like none other. And then when the PlayStation 4 launched, I got that at launch too, and that was more about taking it a step further from what they did with the PS3, really flexing their muscles in graphics and storytelling, and delivering some of the most awesome games of all time in any generation, really. God of War, Last of Us 2, Ghost of Tsushima, just to name a few, Spider-Man. PS4 was really, really a great generation of exclusive games that we got, and they're continuing on PS5. I know we're in a little bit of a downtime right now when it comes to exclusives, but they will come. And that's why I wanted to end this video on this trailer, the 30th anniversary trailer that they released. It really did bring a tear to my eye, and I'm not joking when I say that, because PlayStation has done a lot in my life. It's kept me sane. It's delivered some of the best experiences I've ever experienced in my entire life, and I hope so. I hope that it continues, and I'm pretty confident that it will for the next 30 years, or for however long I'm on this planet playing video games. So I just wanted to do this video. They did their video to thank us for 30 years of greatness, and I just wanted to say thank you to them for 30 years of greatness. And with all that being said, Applersky out. Thanks for watching. Check you guys out on the next video.